This meeting is held remotely pursuant to the provisions of an act signed by Governor Baker on July 16th, 2022, an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, which among other things extends the expiration of provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2023. Specifically, this extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of a public body physically present at the meeting location, and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. The act does not make any new changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meeting from July 16th, 2022 to March 31st, 2023. Be aware that the meeting is being recorded and anything you say or share can be seen or heard by others. This is on the Zoom platform, and information about how to access the meeting can be found on the Community Preservation Act's town meeting, my town government page. Aha. To determine whether we have a quorum, we'll take a roll call. Carolyn.
Here.
Wayne.
Here.
MJ.
Here.
Eleanor.
Here.
And Timothy. So we have a quorum. And we can proceed. Minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from the 17th?
Yep.
We have a motion to accept them.
I have one typo that I found.
Good.
under
Extra
sec-
E.
Yep.
Yep.
Which was it?
Extra E on plan.
It said plain. In the 72 Carter Street, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph.
So we have a motion to accept
So move.
and a second,
Second.
and that's assuming we'll make that correction. Any other additions or corrections? All right, so we'll vote as amended. Carolyn,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Eleanor,
Yes.
MJ,
Aye.
and Tim is aye, so that's taken care of.
Forgot the question there for a second.
Account balances.
Yeah.
Maureen has talked to June, and I have an email from June. The last time we met, we discussed my going to speak with the accounting folks about the accessibility of funds should they arrive from the grant that we got from the state for the purchase of Horseshoe Pond. The state said CP, so Community Preservation Act fund balance is an available financing source only after the accounting officer closes the municipal accounts for the previous fiscal year and determines the amount of the Community Preservation Fund balance. Appropriations from the Community Preservation Fund balance must state a specific dollar amount and can be made during the fiscal year until June 30th, when its availability expires. The accounting officer then closes the municipal accounts for the year and determines a new Community Preservation Fund balance for the ensuing fiscal year. Accounting officer must report the year-end CP fund balance to the Bureau of Accounts. So that's that CP1, CP2, CP3 report that we have to do. But in essence, that says that any money we receive from the state as a grant for Horseshoe Pond would not be available for us to work with at this town meeting. So I've tried to evaluate our revenue and our expenses. And it seems to me that our revenue from the 3 years we've generated funds that we're crediting ourselves for, and the 3 years that we've had state money, we've got about $1.6 million for funding, and we've expended a little more than $1.1 million. So from those numbers, it would appear as though we've got slightly less than 500,000. If we then go and look at what we expended from what we call the balance reserve for 23, fiscal 23, there should be somewhere around 300,000 in that based on what we expended in my figures. And community housing has not touched any of its money. So it would have received the 77,000 that accounted for 20 and 21, and then the 48 from 22 and the 56,000 from 23. So they should have about 190,000. And so that comes out to about 490. So both ways I figure it, it seems to me we've got not quite 500,000. We've got proposals for 545,000 between these three projects that we've been looking at. So that's something we need to keep in mind as we deliberate after we have some of the presentations we'll get this evening and further conversation. Does that make sense to folks? Slightly less than 500,000. June has said that she could meet with me. I don't think she really wanted to do anything until the Warren articles got squared away. And so when I emailed her and all, she said, I need to wait a couple weeks. So, and what did she also say? It seems like there was another comment in her letter to us. She says, looks like on page 28 below, it will have to wait until after the books are closed, so next year. I also found on page 38, it says that for the disposition of property, it would go back to where it was voted from. So it would be the same, I would think, if it was a reimbursement from a grant. I will need to look to see where the funds fully stand as of today and get back to you. We have not yet received any grant reimbursements. Maddie from Concom just asked for copies of expenses. I hope to have information next week. The books have not yet been blessed by DOR yet. So until then, no spending, please. So, as Stuart from the consortium said, and I think I've said this before, we're in a situation where money we have, we can't spend, and money we don't have that we're going to raise and appropriate, we can spend. So crazy. So I'll try to meet with her again and keep people up to date as to what she gives us for final figures. But
So in the
right now,
so in the calculations, did you already take out regular operating expenses for us between now and the end of the year as well?
yeah, because we set aside 5% of what we generate into an account for administrative purposes. So
Okay.
that's got 25,000 in it. We haven't spent anywhere near that. That money goes at the end of the year. Anything that's left goes back into the CPA general fund, essentially. And then it becomes available for use for projects that we might foresee in the future. So several things are at play. One is that she said to us in one of her reports that the amount of money that she'd put into the three buckets, where you're required to put 10% of your total revenue from the year into housing, open space, rec, and historic, she underfunded those accounts because they were based on figures from the previous year, and revenue that got generated actually exceeded it. And it exceeded it by more than $10,000 in each case. So each one of those accounts theoretically has an extra 10,000. We can't touch that until we have she wants to have a special article on the warrant that would transfer money from our general fund into those 3 dedicated funds at the annual town meeting in May. So that money, that extra 10 in each one of those accounts becomes available. So there may very well be an extra 20,000. And if we don't expend out of our administrative account any more than, let's say, 15, there may very well be an extra 10 there, which would give us closer to 520. But how that gets interpreted in regard to the what's certified and what's not gets tricky. So that's a conversation I'll have with her, because I'd like to think that that 30,000 is available. But and then the other part of the equation is that people pay their taxes late sometimes, and those revenues trickle into the CPA funds as well. And that might only be $3,000 or $4,000, but it's still of substance. So we have to pay attention to that too. 7:43. Does anybody have any committee member updates? Anybody have anything exciting to report? Good.
Nope.
Wayne.
Oh, wait, Eloise has her hand up.
Oh, Eloise.
I have one question. Will we get additional money from the state in late winter?
This past year?
No, this, coming up, February, March.
No, what we got was 68% of our revenue was matched by the state in the first 3 rounds, and then the 20 million extra that came from the legislature to CPA was distributed later. That became available Dennis got a check for that in December, and that was another 68,000. 68. I may have that
So.
number wrong, but anyway, so the total ended up being 605, which was 99% of a 99% match, which was close to the 100% match we got the year before. But there won't be any more additional money from CPA from the state until November. One administrative matter. Wayne, you and I talked about you going to the select board to present the plan, and
Yep.
Would the 21st of February, right after President's Day on a Tuesday, work for you?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I'll verify that with Kristen, but that's what I think they're thinking about at 7.
Okay. Tuesday.
We'll skip public input and we'll go straight to discussions. We've got Carl, Bob. Good. Carl's project's been floating around the longest, so why don't we elevate Carl first?
You got it.
Hi, Carl.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep, and Julie's here now too, so that's
Yep.
great.
Okay.
We're full force.
Very good.
so we got your update. Did you want to add anything else to the conversation and the discussion?
Well, there's really no change since we submitted this back in September. The technical requirements are the same. You'll recall when we met in August, we had received an updated quote from the contractor that we've been working with. And he increased his quote by just under, let's see, I think it was just under $2,000 to adjust for inflation. And then we recognized, both your group and the AgCom, that it would be almost another year since then before we can make an award. So we add additional monies to cover anticipated inflation, which brought the total requested amount up to $45,000. So I feel comfortable with that. I think the amount of monies we're looking for is appropriate at this time. And like I say, the technical requirements haven't changed.
Great.
And I think that's where we are.
Any questions from anybody in regard to this project? We've been looking at this one for quite a while, so we've explored quite a bit of it.
When would the work get done? Over the summer, or?
So on the presumption that the good citizens of Berlin are going to approve this at town meeting, we want to get out on the street within days after that meeting with an RFQ. This is going to be a competitive procurement. So recognizing that, earlier this month, we prepared a procurement package, a transmittal letter, a statement of work, and other related documents. That's been forwarded to the town administrator. I have a meeting scheduled with the town administrator on the 17th of February to finalize the documents and have them ready to go out the door, like I say, days after the town meeting on the presumption it will be approved. So that being the case, if that happens, we got to give the contractors about 30 days to respond. We're going to have an on-site visit. So by the time all that happens, and by the time we make an award, I think we're probably looking at maybe mid-July, perhaps first part of August at the latest. And we think this is probably not more than a 30-day task to complete. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for outlining. I really commend you on all your pre-planning so you can move fast.
you.
That's great.
And the other part that we have to remember is that funds we vote in May don't become available to July 1st. So what Carl is proposing really fits into that schedule nicely. I'll verify that again with June, but that's been my continual understanding, is that Maytown meeting, we vote, but it's the beginning of the next fiscal year that the funds actually can be expended. So,
Oh, okay. I was under the impression, and I guess I was wrong, that it was be available as soon as, I thought the money was already in the bank. And as soon as they got approved at town meeting, it would be readily available, but that's not
Yeah.
a problem.
there may be ways that we can phrase articles in such a way that the funds would be available before the fiscal year, but I'll check on that too, but your schedule works in well with that
Okay.
anyway, so I think we're all set.
Good.
Any other questions for Carl? All right,
What, actually, so, the plan that we saw was from, I don't remember the fence company, but either way,
I have intentionally not mentioned the contractor's name because I want to preserve the integrity of the procurement. I don't want to give anybody a leg up. So
sure,
I've been
yep.
Just referring it to it as a contractor.
But
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
whoever gets the project, the end result will be the project that we saw.
That's the intent.
With-
We have utilized the statement of work that we have prepared, which, as I mentioned, will be reviewed by the town administrator on the 17th, is basically a summarization of the data that we received from the contractor that we've been working with, all the technical specifications, the amount of footage of fencing, the type of fencing, the gate configurations. They're all consistent with his outline of the task.
Excellent.
Great. Anybody else? Everybody's all set? Thank you, Carl.
You're quite welcome. Have a good evening, folks, and thank you very much. Appreciate your looking at this. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Take
Carl.
care.
All right, Elaine, shut it off.
And Bob is with us.
He is. Oh, there we go. Here he comes.
Hey, folks.
Hello.
Hi, Bob. Now, you sent around, did just Maureen and I get that updated proposal? And Maureen, we didn't send that to everybody else yet, did we?
Yes, everything that Bob sent me, the members got last Thursday. I sent all 3 applications in one email.
Okay, so he sent
Oh.
another one today.
Oh, I didn't see anything today. Didn't
Okay,
have any
I'm gonna,
see hours that that's why I need that laptop.
right, we'll get that. So I'm gonna, well, Bob, actually, you can share your screen if you want to bring that up.
Happy to. Yeah, I made a one pager to summarize and
Let's do that.
that intent. Okay, are you seeing our fact sheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So this proposal is, should be quite familiar to you all at this point. I rolled in the feedback that this committee has shared over the last several weeks and months. So our total plan now, our total requested ask is 150K. That includes a pavilion of the same footprint as originally proposed, 25 by 44, but with an enhanced aesthetic to match the Berlin personality a little better than the structure that was previously proposed. We allocated just under $2,000 for landscaping to soften up some of the lines and help it blend with the green area and green space where it is proposed to be located. Just as a reminder, we do have a provisional approval from Select Board on placing the structure at this site on South Commons, pending compliance with any regulatory requirements. We're working with Capital Planning Committee to get this in front of them just to get their eyes on it. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I don't think they've got the space in the agenda, and I have a time constraint as well. But I imagine at the next possible time we'll get it there. From just a timing standpoint of the project, the steel, which is what this pavilion is made of, it's about 22 weeks after receipt of order. So our intent would be to go ahead and it'll also have to go through the RFP process. So we're thinking that should CPAC and the town approve this proposal, we'll put it out to bid immediately after that positive vote, and just structure the bid timing around when the funds would be released, which would be that time frame I think you mentioned, Tim. Otherwise, it's largely unchanged from last time we spoke about it. I will share that Recreation sees this as hopefully one of the first of several improvements to the South Common grounds. It's just a beautiful chunk of property, and we think that there's a few things we could do to it to help increase accessibility for that property as well as the functionality of it. And we hope this could be the first of a few upgrades. And yeah, we just, we really love the idea of seeing, groups have informal luncheons out here, or have a meeting of a group with a shared interest. It could support the fishing derby, activity on the basketball courts or playgrounds, and we think a lot of other uses. We especially love the idea of having a no-cost place for families to gather for a kid's birthday party or something like that. So I definitely appreciate your feedback on behalf of Recreation, and hope you give it some consideration.
Great. Questions from anybody?
I'm here.
Wayne, you're all set? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
all set. Thank you.
No, I
Yep.
just want to say thanks for taking our feedback and incorporating it into the whole project.
My pleasure. I think it makes the project better.
Anyone else with questions? So the sidewalk would run from that parking lot that isn't finished
Correct.
and be what, 4 feet wide?
Right.
And it enters the pavilion at the grade. The pavilion's pad isn't going to be, it's going to be flush with the ground, barely above it. What's your plan?
Barely above it, and we would expect to ramp from the walkway to the grade. So if you did
Yep.
have someone that was in a wheelchair or using a wheeled mobility device, they wouldn't have a hard time getting up into the pavilion. We would want to follow, ADA compliance.
And the
Other
lands,
questions?
just the landscaping price, you just kind of threw a dart at that. What's that based on?
Yeah. So I've just so happens I've done a bunch of landscaping in my house recently over the last couple of years, so I have a sense for what this kind of stuff costs. And after all of the other adjustments, we had about 2K to get to around 150K for the total ask. So we allocated that and said we'll spend what $2,000 will get us. We'll buy what we can for 2K. I think that's probably going to allow us to put a cluster of shrubs and plants at each corner around the posts, some boxwoods or other kind of evergreens, things that are low maintenance and long lasting. And then we do have 5K allocated for the miscellaneous and unplanned. And if for whatever reason we feel we need to put some more money towards landscaping and we don't have an unplanned item that pops up, we can draw from that bucket of funds as well.
Excellent.
But honestly, I think the 19 and change of 2K is probably plenty to put a nice cluster of plants at each corner of the pavilion.
All set, everybody?
Well, I do have one other question, not necessarily about the pavilion, but about the tennis courts. How's that coming?
Great question. So I think it's with Kristen. I don't know that it has gone out to bid yet. I anticipated that question at town meeting. Should we get your folks' endorsement? And so my plan is to ping Kristen to understand exactly where that process is, because it's a very fair question. Do you have any details, Julie, beyond that it's with
Yeah,
Kristen?
so this was an unfortunate turn of events due to Margaret's timing on her health and leaving, and the fact that she had to sign off on this. When she was given this project, she was at a point where she had to step away from projects that were not emergency projects in town, and this was considered that. So out of deference to what she was going through, we agreed that that was fair because of her health. And then there was the hiring when Kristen came on, that we put this on her desk in October. And at that time, the budget and her getting her feet wet in the town was her priority. Not that this was not, but we are in the winter months, so we sort of said, okay, again, well, we understand. But I did speak with her the week before last, and she knows that this has to be a priority because we are going to town floor with another project. We are going to get those questions. And she thought that was a fair comment. She said, so right after she wraps up this budget, then this is her priority. And so we said, okay, to that. So it's kind of, it's definitely disappointing, but certainly because Fred and his crew took that fence down, the winter before last in his spare time with the anticipation that we were going to bid this project. But then, life has a way of just, putting obstacles up, and, we have to adapt and we have to adjust. And I've learned that, and that it's okay. We're just hoping that by the time we do put it out to bid, that we can start breaking ground by April, May, warm weather, so that the kids, the courts get used quite a bit now. So we want to have that available for groups to use, in the nice weather. So that's where we stand. It's been basically an unfortunate list of things that have happened.
Well, the past couple of years have certainly taught us all how to pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
And yep.
Right.
Off topic again, the scoreboard went up and you got to utilize it during the end of the season, or how did that work?
Yes, for baseball.
Yeah.
Yes. And everything is so, technology is amazing, right? The scoreboard went up, and you can download an app on your phone and keep track of the score through this little app device on your phone. So sometimes it's hard to get somebody to run the scoreboard with the big, piece of equipment, and you have to teach someone how to do it. But anybody can download it. It's so easy. So it's very easy for any person in the stands to do. So it's awesome.
Great. And the announcer's booth is,
We're hoping that that's going to break ground as well. As soon as the ground now is, but we've been fortunate. The weather hasn't been bad. I want to knock on wood, right? But as long as the weather stays okay, he'll be able to dig, by April as well. So hopefully that's up before the start of the season also. So all good
that's
things happening down there, Tim. All good things.
right, but everything's done except for getting the work done on that one.
That's right. Yes.
Yep, good. Anybody else with questions? All right. Thanks, Bob, and Julie as well.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Just one parting question. What's just because this is my first time going through this, what's the process to learn the outcome from the CPA committee's vote?
So we're going to have to vote tonight in order to put articles on the warrant. And what we were discussing earlier when we started was availability of funds. So that's what we're going to have to work on as we deliberate, because we've got a request for 545, and I think June is going to tell us that we've got somewhere less than 500,000 available, given what she's learned from the state in regard to some of the other funding that was eventually going to come back to us in the grants.
Got it. Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
So
folks.
actually, I do have one question, Bob, before you leave.
Sure.
If it turned out that because of the amount of money we have, that we asked you to break your project into 2 phases. Would you guys be amenable to that? Or would you rather just wait and do it all at the next town meeting?
I mean, personally, I don't think anyone would have an issue with it. It's just practically speaking, can the project be broken up in that way? That's the
Right.
question. The pavilion is what it is. It's 69K, and we kind of talked about wanting to do that right the first time. The concrete work is, that's 40, and it's going to be difficult to really, shrink that cost at all. Our plans. I mean, we could nix the picnic tables for now. That's 7,200. We could certainly nix the landscaping. We might be able to pull 10K off of this without completely disrupting the project. But I don't know that we'd be able to take much more out of that. And if it were the difference between picnic tables and bushes, I'd say, yeah, let's move forward and we'll figure out the picnic tables and bushes in the future. But I don't think we want to downsize the project.
I think what Carolyn's talking about I was thinking the same thing is, could you break it down to be concrete slab, and how would that, if concrete slab and groundwork, and then the other part afterward? I don't know, and I don't know if it makes sense to present it that way. I don't know if the town would vote half of it with the possibility that, they might not come through later on. So I don't know.
That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought of it that way, clearly. I think that when the slab is poured, there's a drawing that comes from the pavilion manufacturer that shows a pattern of bolts that have to be placed into the slab that the structure will bolt to, and that has to be done when the slab is poured, of course. So if we were to do that and then pause, we're going to have this concrete slab with some pretty serious bolts sticking out of the ground. And I think it would probably be wise to either rope that off completely so no one gets near it, or don't do it at all, because that feels like it could be a safety issue. Because I think they're quite large. I'm thinking 1/2 inch by 8 inch tall bolts sticking out of the ground, 100 feet from the playground.
Nah, that'll be
mean,
fine.
Yeah, it's good to consider, but
It's an interesting idea. I'm thinking out loud. I don't know if there's another way to do it.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll make the best decision we can.
Yeah. That's all we can ask for.
Right.
Very good. Thanks, folks. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Bob.
all
Thank
the
you.
input you shared with us. Thanks.
Good night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
We got James in the audience.
We do.
Why don't we bring James in on the Carter Street conversation?
All righty. There he goes.
Hi, James.
Hello. Hello.
So Carter Street,
Yes.
everything's still available with the owners. They're willing to wait until town meeting
They're-
action.
Yeah, they're waiting to see what you have to say.
Okay. So Carolyn and I have talked this through a little bit more. I met with Kristen to talk about it. I went to the Finance Committee. We're going to meet with the Capital Planning Committee, although I updated Anna about it a bit ago, but Carolyn and I are going to meet with capital planning tomorrow night.
Okay.
I talked to the town has a relationship with the Assabet Regional Housing Collaborative, which is 8 towns that deal with affordable housing. And they help support our management of the subsidized housing inventory. And they contract with a third party that is out of Newton, and I met with 3 of their staff yesterday to talk about the strategy of acquiring a piece of property, keeping it affordable, and moving it out of the hands of the town into a private party's hands. And we had a good conversation that went reasonably well. I've got a call into Habitat for Humanity, but I haven't heard back from them. We're represented by the North Central Massachusetts chapter of Habitat. In our initial proposal, we had speculated about the possibility of creating 2 lots, one for the house that's there and an additional lot that might be used for additional affordable housing units. That's become more problematic given the frontage and the total acreage. And so as a result, it would appear now as though we're really talking about trying to acquire the 8.5 acres using money from CPA that would be for open space acquisition, and the acquisition of the house, which would be separated off onto an 80,000 square foot lot, and then sold to a third party who would then refurbish it and go through the mechanics that are necessary to keep it an affordable unit. So it would be sold through a lottery, and ended up on our subsidized housing inventory. And what we had proposed was dedicating 100,000 from open space and 250,000 from housing, and separate from this CPA action, 50,000 from funds that have come from mitigation money to the housing partnership over the years that are available for this type of project. And that would give us, well, we could expend the 50 if it came to be that it was going to be, 400,000. If it's a little more, then we'd pull more out of that housing partnership fund in order to accommodate that extra expense. We don't have a formal housing trust that's populated. We voted at a town meeting, so we have a trust. We put an announcement in the census mailing that said we were looking for additional members. The select board is going to post the position if they haven't already, and they're the appointing authority. We've got right now 5 interested individuals. So the trust would be up and running before town meeting. And to me, that would result in there being the force that would have to explain this more thoroughly than I ever have. This is sort of an attempt to utilize that housing money in a fashion that creates one more affordable housing unit. It's an experiment in a way. when I talked to the folks from Newton yesterday, and I said, you know, that the town is in this situation where this is one of the first times it'll expend CPA housing money, and, you know, you always have to ask yourself, what's the most appropriate use of those funds? You know, is the creation of a single family home that really makes a significant difference for that one family, and the acquisition of the remainder of this space for open space, which is going to have a positive impact on the center of town, particularly the people in Carterville who are living primarily on fairly small lots. And now as a result, you know, they'd have access to some open space immediately behind their homes. So that's what I know right now. Do you have anything to chime in with, Carolyn?
I mean, I could certainly list a couple other benefits for conserving that property. One of which came up at the planning board the other night, in that some of the town buildings in the center of town may need access to a well. And we could certainly write whatever conservation restriction we put on the property to allow that. So the Bullard House, the 1870 Town Hall, potentially the church, potentially whatever, if something needed to happen, if water needed to be available for National Lumber, we would have the ability to install a well. And it preserves the scenic value of downtown, of the center of town, which I think is big.
So, questions, comments, thoughts? Eloise, Housing Partnership, ideas, thoughts on this?
Not really.
I have a thought. Sorry, I think, Tim, your point of, you know, so what are the goals of CPA, right? And how we want to be able to use the funds so that they benefit a large number of people. And I understand there's a certain percentage that's allocated to housing, but I'm not so sure taking 100K out of open space to put toward this housing is going to benefit a large population of people. And I'm definitely sympathetic toward the people that live up in the center of town, that it does allow for them to have that open space. I think this is a very expensive project. I mean, I know the land acquisition that Carolyn proposed last time was also a very expensive project as well, but there was a kickback coming back to CPA. I don't know. I'm very torn on this. If we are tight right now with money, I think we have to look at these three projects and say which of these three projects are going to benefit the most community members and work backwards from that perspective.
Could I just mention something that Julie brought up? The house money is already there.
Right. Only 250 though, 100's coming from open space, right?
The 100 for open space is acquiring 6.5 acres of land.
No, I understand that. I do. But if we only have so much to work with and we have all these projects,
Right. So
maybe this is not the time for the housing.
So
That's all I'm saying.
the developers I haven't talked to many, but I've talked to a couple builders in town, and the notion would be that if we were to acquire the house and the 2 acres of land, that when we dispatched, when we got rid of the property, we'd recoup some funds. Now, that figure is is not able to be determined yet because we don't know what the input is going to be on the part of whoever refurbishes this place. If we were to recoup 100,000, it means that we're basically spending 150 out of housing,
Mhm.
and there's 200 in that account. So we're not depleting anybody else's resource. And then we're spending 100,000 to protect the 6.5 acres in the center of town.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the way I've tried to look at it, is that just as there was the opportunity to apply for a grant and hope that we'd get it with the Horseshoe Pond piece, and we did. In this case, there's the opportunity to sell the property and recoup some of that money that would come back to CPA and go back into housing, because it's the housing portion of the funds that are going to be used to acquire the house.
Yeah, I think the difference, Tim, is at that time with Carolyn's project, there weren't many other projects on the table, right? We didn't have to push others out, say no to.
We
I
Well, we
think we-
did actually.
we pushed the
we-
fence,
one?
but
We,
yeah,
we
And I-
pushed,
No, that was,
yep, we pushed
the
Carl,
fence was before,
Carl's
yeah.
fence.
Yeah. I thought the
Um,
fence came after. The fence came after, no?
No, we
yeah.
chose to ask him to wait on that.
I
But I guess
see.
I would say in listening to the conversation, I understand the urgency. I think there's, we're lucky right now that the amount of projects are close to our budget. I mean, we could get to a
Yeah.
point where there are a lot of ideas that far exceed it, because I don't think that, the goal is to, well, we've already had these number of projects on the table, so we don't want to take any more applications, because it really, that's our job, is to come up, like you said, with what's the best use of the funds. I guess for me, coming onto this committee and thinking about what the mission is that, to me, when you say community preservation, it's about preserving the quality and character of the town and the value of, what things are like, and, part of it's open space. So I don't necessarily, even though maybe as many people, I mean, I guess people could have access to this just like they would the Mount Pisgah area, the Horseshoe Pond area. But for me, in some ways, it's even more critical than that other area in some ways, because it's right at the heart of our community. And if, somebody came in, bought that land and leveled all the trees, or put another house in there, or did something, leveled the house and put a very large home right in the center of town, a McMansion of some sort, I think it could, really change the character of what Carterville looks like. You can't rely on developers to do something that's aesthetically pleasing. They can build whatever kind of house they want. So if they buy it with 8 acres, they could do what they want. And I do understand what you're saying, Julie, about, there's all these things, but this is an opportunity that won't come back. If we don't do it, it never comes back. We lose the opportunity forever. Just like, we lost next to this South Common, we lost the opportunity to buy that piece of property, and now we have a little mini village in there. So, I don't want to have to put off another project either, but I would rather, consider funding a project like this and having that opportunity, for the town to have it and stay there, and that's going to be forever versus, and, we would have to wait a year on a pavilion. I would think, in my view, that's about, I mean, I can understand for, the community, we would have to discuss that afterward, what's better, what's more pressing, the fence or the pavilion or whatever. But to me, this would be a priority only because of the character changing potential if we didn't, encourage it. I mean, and it's not a zero-sum game. It's not always about recouping all the costs. I mean, we're spending it, maybe it's an investment in a home that we would get, additional land. And then, maybe it's not all coming back, but it preserves the town. I would spend $50,000 to preserve the center of town the way that it is than to see something happen to it that I'd be really unhappy with. But that's my view.
Yeah, I kind of just want to echo that bit. So I do live in Carville. I'm on the other side of the street, so it wouldn't be, behind my house. So, it's not something where I think it's going to be a big gain that, people are just, walking a trail or something that, that may be my understanding. But I think it is kind of insurance against, what kind of thing could, go on there, whether, it is something that, got clear cut or something, or, needing, well access or what have you. So I don't think it necessarily, improves anything right away. I'm not worried that I'm gonna, look outside my house and, gonna be my view that gets screwed up by, something being developed, but, just kind of brings back memories of things like, 30 years ago when all, Chedco and all, the clear cutting there and such. So I think, especially where it is the center of town, that
I mean, somebody could like a house right up at the peak of that property with a driveway going right up with a view that looks over all of Berlin. And you could have a very large, modern, contemporary structure right up at the peak of Powder House Hill,
Yeah.
And half of the hill would have trees on it and half of it wouldn't.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, guys.
And I do
Well,
think
I mean,
it's critical
it's a
to,
maybe, but
the whole well issue, I think, is important. I know that the church is really having problems right now. And I can see other of the municipal buildings having similar problems. So I do think we need to allow for that.
Right,
Um,
which if it was privately held,
We wouldn't have that
we wouldn't have
opportunity.
that opportunity.
The planning board received a plan a number of years ago that subdivides the property with a road. It creates the 3 lots, one that the existing house would be on, and then 2 additional lots, one of 150,000 square feet, one of 100,000, but they're both situated. It looks like about 400 feet into the property. So if you look at the total extent of the property, the 2 proposed sites for the houses end up being 3/4 of the way up the hill from the Carter Street entrance. So that didn't go forward at the time, but we have begun to see subdivisions that have been built with roads that only support 2 houses. So in this case, it would be it would be creating 3 frontage lots that satisfied the approval not required standards. So anything else?
I will say, this is an estate sale, so if the town doesn't go forward, it will be going on the market right away. This is not where somebody still lives there and it may be moving or not. It will be going on if you guys say no.
Yeah, and do you want to update us? Title V is all set.
Yep.
When we walked the house with Kevin, he was genuinely surprised at the condition, I guess, is fair to say.
Pleasantly surprised.
He felt it was in much better shape than he would have anticipated.
I'd agree with that. Structure wise, I'm not a home inspector or anything, but Kevin is. Structure wise, it seems okay. Vinyl siding, vinyl windows, hardwood floors. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna have a problem selling it. I'll tell you that much. We've had inquiries already, but the family has said so far that they want to see out the town process first.
So if the property were to be sold on the market without all that additional land, what's your sense as to what you'd be able to sell it for if it was just the house and 2 acres?
Well, we saw Russ Kennedy's old property. I believe that was on for about 300,000. That was probably in a little better condition, but I don't think the Title V passed on that one, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I would guess this without the land would probably be in the 275 range, 275 to 3.
Okay.
We haven't seen much go under 3 in a long time in Berlin. So That's what I'd probably guess.
Good. Other questions? Anybody else got any questions for James?
I like,
Carolyn, do you want to, Eloise, go ahead.
no, the only other point I wanted to re-stress is if it goes on the public market, you can get a 40B. You know, Mark put 12 houses on 6 acres off South Street, which is all Wilson Road. And something similar could happen. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you. So this property abuts another 7.5 acre parcel that comes up off of Carter Street by the library. And then that parcel abuts the Powder House land that the town owns. And it also abuts Faith Lindsay's land, which connects to the town hall land. So it doesn't get us total access, but the potential is I think Carolyn's thought about ways in which access from Harris Road coming off of Highland Ridge could allow for a trail up and across at some point that would lead people to Powder House land in the center. Anyway, other questions or thoughts on that proposal? So for the time being, we're done with the 3 proposals. So we have to make some decisions here. And they can be tentative based on what we learned from June, I suppose. If June releases more funds than I anticipate, then we're not in a predicament in terms of being able to fund all 3 of these. But right now, it does not appear as though all 3 could move forward with the funds we have available.
Well, can I ask one other question? James mentioned the.
But one thing to remember is that 200,000 or 190,000 of what we've got available is targeted only for housing, whereas the 300,000 that's available from the balance reserve could be for any of the 3 purposes.
So to make the funding work for the Carter Street property, does that require the blending of the funds for the house and the land together? Or is it possible to, because you really couldn't propose splitting the property and just purchasing acreage? I'm not even sure the family would want to do that, but I'm just asking that question. Is it you purchase it all or not? Correct.
So that's a question for James, right?
Because the pricing you were mentioning, James, was, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but the pricing you were mentioning was for what would be the value of the house with the 2 acres. So, you know.
Yeah, and that's not, I mean, I can't speak for what the family would want to do in that situation. The list price on that is going to be $399. So I have never talked to them about splitting it up. I don't know if that's anything they want to get into.
Okay, just answer my question. You answered my question with that.
Okay.
If,
I don't want to
Yeah,
put you on the spot, and you did answer. You basically answered what I was looking for. So
Okay.
thanks.
yeah, I think that the thing to remember is that the buildability of the remaining acreage beyond the house lot for the existing house disappears if you separate the house that's there now, and you can't access
I
that
hear you.
remainder.
I hear
So
you.
if you hold all the 3 that, you know, you hold the open space and the house, then you can create a subdivision road, create frontage for the house that's there, that's new on that subdivision road, and then end up with the 2 additional lots, which
Okay.
potentially adds significant value. Lots are selling for what now, James?
oh, like 250 right now. There's none available in Berlin.
Yeah.
They could be up to 300,000 at this point, just because there's scarcity. There's none available.
I mean, somebody's got to build a road for 3 houses. And,
Yes.
you know, so that's an expense that someone would have to be facing, but some people have the capacity to handle that. I mean, the smaller subdivision roads that we've seen lately have been for 5 houses. But they've been, you know, people that are capable of building a substantial amount of the road themselves, so they take that on and swallow it and assume that this is part of the doing business in Berlin cost, so.
Thanks.
Well, especially if you pick up the whole thing for 4 and you put 3 houses that are gonna sell for, you know, between 750 and whatever.
Right.
Uh,
Or if they break off the house, sell the house, and then they get the lots for 100 grand, 2 lots, and they just have to build the road. So
Right.
do I think we'll have a problem at 399? No, I think it'll sell. It's just, like I said, the family's just given a chance for the town to have first whack at it. And then if they say no, we'll be putting it on.
No, we appreciate it. I
Yeah,
do.
very much
I do
so.
anyways.
Thank the
I do
family.
too.
It's not me. It's the, you know, obviously the family gets all the credit on this one.
That's great. That's
All
what
right,
community
so
is
we have
about.
3 proposals, and at this point, it doesn't appear as though we have money for all 3. So if you were going to prioritize these in such a fashion that you were going to try to move forward with automatically a town meeting with some and hold some in check if money becomes more available as a result of our conversations with June and her numbers demonstrate that there's, you know, actually 545, then everything falls into place if you choose to do that. So thoughts?
Well, it's clear that we're under a time constraint with the 72 Carter Street. We don't have an option of putting that one off. We either do it or we forget it.
Correct.
Yeah,
And the housing money isn't gonna benefit the other projects by being, you know, held off.
Right.
yeah, I would support the house. I would support 72 Carter Street as my priority. And if we do that, to me, the amount of budget that would be left based on what you're telling us isn't enough to fund the pavilion at this point. So, you know, I guess I would then prioritize the fence because it's not just because it's weighted. If we had more money, I might consider the pavilion first because I do think it's going to benefit more people than a fence. But but so I guess I would prioritize them 72 Carter Street, the fence, and then, you know, if the town chose to not move forward, then I would certainly propose the pavilion as well. So I mean, we could order them on the warrant to put all 3 on, and, you know, if one passes, great, and if it doesn't, then we have it backed up that we could still put the other one forth.
Can we do that?
Sure.
I'm sneaky.
No, because right now you're just talking about warrant articles.
Yeah,
Right.
And
Sure.
you won't know the amounts till you deal with, which could even be closer to April or May,
say that again.
but all the articles.
We could certainly put all 3 on
Yep.
and
We
end up
pass
in
over.
a situation in April where we finally see all the pieces coming together. And we could say, okay, we're going to pull one of these and it won't get printed up and sent out to folks.
No, sometimes it's not bad to have people print it and look at it and,
But my point is, if it's not on the warrant, I wouldn't pull it necessarily, because if you were to pull it and then they chose to not go with 72 Carter Street, I mean, that's our recommendation, but we've seen other things go south.
Mhm.
You know, then we would be in a position where we couldn't approve the pavilion because we didn't put it on the warrant.
that's why I want
And I
all of
wouldn't
them on there.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I
what-
guess one of the things we'd have to determine is whether we can recommend The idea is that this committee makes a recommendation and then the town meeting votes.
Yep.
My understanding is that it's not a lottery. It's not that we say, here are 3 options, choose the 2 that you want.
Aren't they going to be in, are they all, is it one article, Tim, or are they all separate
No, they're
articles?
separate articles.
So why is it,
Because if all 3 pass, then we don't have the money.
but we have to.
We might.
But wait a minute, don't we have to put it forth? Can't we pull it right on town?
Yeah, wouldn't we be able to, like,
Well,
if
I,
the first 2 pass, withdraw the third one right at that moment?
Yes,
I don't know. You have to, if you want to make a motion to pass over an article, it has to be voted on by the folks in the town meeting.
Well, you would based on the fact that the other one was approved prior to it, which expended the funds, therefore there are no longer
Yeah,
funds to fund this.
I
I
have
mean,
no
maybe
trouble-
I'm wrong, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no trouble putting all 3 on. But my preference would be that when we get to the point where we know we can't handle all 3, if that's the case, that we pull one then, so it doesn't get printed and sent out to everybody. Because to me, going to town meeting with the notion that we've got an article that we're not gonna support, but that, you know, it's freewheeling time at town meeting, worries me a little bit. I'd rather we make that decision before we get there, because we'll have the information that we need to make that decision prior to that, and we don't have it now. So we can prioritize these as, you know, 1, 2, and 3,
Well, I
and we
don't
can
think
put
that's a
all
good
3 on
idea.
the warrant.
I
and
don't think we
can see-
prioritize them. I think it's ultimately up to the town to vote on this, right? This
Yeah.
is how CPA is designed.
The way
Um,
CPA is
but I-
designed is that the CPA committee makes the decision about which articles are gonna be on the warrant and which we approve. We
Well-
can't
We
approve
recommend,
more
right.
than we have money for.
But I can tell you right now, though,
No,
if that's what would happen, is that there would be some, you know, our prioritization of what we thought was important as a committee was like, okay, well, you know, then it got played fast and loose, like, oh, turn this down because, you know, it's a popularity contest. I wouldn't put the pavilion forward. I wouldn't even vote for it just based on that. I would rather nothing else than 72 Carter Street, either yes or no, because I just think it's that important to the town.
No, I understand what everyone's saying, and that's definitely what everybody here feels, but we have to put this out to the community because it's a Community Preservation Act. So what I'm saying there is if the community knows we have this amount of money, these are the 3 projects, they deserve the right to vote on that, guys. That's not up to the 7 of us
That's actually,
here.
well,
But that- but
actually
that
it is.
our role. That is our
That
role.
is our
No,
role.
It's our role. No, it's our role to recommend, right?
Correct.
Right.
Within,
that's
within
role.
our budget.
I
Right,
don't
but
think
we
that
know
implies that it's an equal recommendation, though. I don't think that says you have to like everything the same amount.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Can you say that one more time, MJ?
So if it's something we recommend, if it's based on our recommendation, I don't think that obligates us to say these are 3 projects and we are equally behind them. If it's our recommendation, why can't we be stronger in support of one than another?
Because it's for the community, because it
Well,
goes to.
they're
town-
still voting on it. They're still voting on it.
Sure,
I
sure. So
don't-
they should have, sorry, I think they should just have the whole picture of it.
Okay, so what we're saying is that we'd put 3 articles on. There'd be $190,000 available to do the housing portion of the Carter Street project. But there wouldn't be any other money for the Carter Street project unless at town meeting, people voted the additional 160.
So when they
And
vote the
it-
article for the Carter Street project, are they not, I mean, I guess I'm not understanding the total funds that need to be appropriated. I guess I'm not, I mean, looking at the.
I can I just suggest that we support the projects now and we'll look at the money next meeting after you've talked with June and have a better handle on, because we might be getting worked up over very little.
Yeah, true, true.
Or when do we have to have the warrant articles put in by?
Yeah, but they're not gonna, we need to have them in by noon, February 13, but they're not gonna be printed on February 14. So if you had to pull them, you still can pull them in February, late February, early March.
There is that option. You can put all three of these on. And wait till we hear from June. And then we can, because if we feel ultimately that the day will come when we would support all three of these, you know, if we don't want to dismiss any of these out of hand, is what we're saying. If we were to prioritize these, we could rank them 1, 2, and 3, but we're saying we won't need to do that just yet. We'll put all three on the warrant. We'll meet again in late February, and we'll determine then what the funding sources are. And if the money isn't there, then we can determine which we can support and
Then we can have a gladiator fight. We could get money with spectators, you know?
Well,
And
sports
that would
betting
raise
is
the
now
money.
legal
There you
in the state,
go.
so.
You are funny.
But hopefully, I mean, this year has been sad because all of the I'm also on the capital planning, and it's hard because the finances have been delayed.
Mhm.
So.
Right. Anyway, if someone wants to make a motion
I
or
will
multiple motions,
Yeah, Tim, just for admin purposes, it might be best to have the votes for recommendation separate. Then it will be easier to manage afterwards if needed.
and that way we can, at a later time, just act on one of those motions rather than trying to tamper with a general motion that deals with all three. And we need a motion to vote our budget as well.
Do we have that number?
So our budget, I'll pull that up. Anyway, that'll be a separate motion. So let's go, if people are comfortable, we'll go with 4 different motions, one for the general budget and one for each of the 3 projects.
It's fine if you know the dollar. amount.
So move.
You're moving which one?
All of them fast.
No, I don't want to
Write them
do
up
that.
however you
won't-
want them.
I want you
Hurry
to
up,
make a
I'm getting
motion for
tired.
one.
My eyes are falling asleep.
Yep.
All
Which
right,
one do you
I'll
want to
make a
move?
motion for the Carter Street project.
We have a
for-
second.
Second,
Any additional conversation on that one? All right, we'll do a roll call on that. So Carolyn,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
Julie,
No,
Eloise,
aye.
Tim, I. So that's 6 in favor, 1 opposed. And we have another motion.
I'll make a motion for the South Common Pavilion.
And we have a second.
Second,
And any discussion on that? All right, we'll do a roll call on this one. Julie,
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Eloise,
aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Tim is aye, so that's 7 in favor. And do we have a motion for the fence?
The general budget. I thought we already did the fence.
No,
Not as a
afraid
motion.
not.
not as a motion to take it to town meeting.
Okay,
I'll make the motion for the fence.
second.
Any conversation, any discussion about that? All right, we'll do a roll call on this. MJ,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye,
Wayne,
Aye.
Julie,
Yeah, this just for the warrant, right? Yep.
Ellie. Did I already do Ellie?
no,
Aye.
you hadn't.
Ellie
Aye.
and Tim, aye. So there's 7 in favor of that one. Where have I got that?
I'll go ahead and add the amounts in the minutes.
Great.
How about the general budget? Have you done that one?
I'm doing that
Oh.
one now. I've got to,
Isn't that just a percentage anyway?
not necessarily. Where have I got that?
We can even modify these if we had to before printing, if the amounts change. For the
Yeah,
general
we can.
budget. So do you want me to make a motion that we approve X amount for our general operating budget?
Yep, that would be all right.
The amount to be
I'll s-
determined afterward? And filled in?
Second.
Any discussion on this one?
I guess if I would just say if we haven't expended, what we had this year, then I assume that's going to be taken into the calculation for next year.
Yeah, so what there is there's $305,849 that we've received from our own fee, $303,629 from the state. That means that the budget's going to combine those two figures, which gives us 609,000. So there's going to be 60,900 placed into each of the 3 pockets. Approximately 30,000 put into our administrative budget. And then the remainder will go into the budgeted reserve. Once we subtract that 210,000 essentially. So that'll mean that budgeted reserve will end up with about 400,000.
Thanks for giving us the sketch.
That's the thumbnail on that. But so we'll finalize those figures based on what we've got from the state, and we'll so I'll draft up these articles. We've
didn't
got them
vote. We
partially
didn't-
drafted already.
We
and-
didn't vote
and-
on that last one, Tim.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's seconded.
It's seconded, so we'll do a roll call if no one has any other comment. Wayne,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Julie. Is Julie say yes?
She can't, she's waving yes, thumbs up.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Sorry. Yes, thank
MJ,
you.
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye,
Ellie,
Aye.
Tim, I. That's it. We've got that one done.
Phew.
All right. Warrant articles. We've got housing coordinator on the discussion here. As we said before, there's no requirement that we commit any funds at this time. The position wouldn't start until July of this year. It would run for 3 years. The first year would be free. The second and third years we'd be using money out of the housing, community housing portion of our CPA funding. 15,000 a year for 2 years. As a maximum. Some of that money might come out of the housing partnerships mitigation money. So it might very well only be 10,000 a year from us. I chatted with the folks at Central Mass again. We had a meeting of the 5 towns that are interested in participating. What we'd have would be someone that would be available to work with the Housing Trust as it was putting together its bylaws and procedures. At some point, the Housing Trust would have to come back to town meeting with those to probably be approved by town meeting. So if there was a fall town meeting, this housing coordinator might very well help the Housing Trust accomplish that. And then they could also work with the other types of programs that are available for communities, aging in place or first-time home buyer assistance or rental assistance in times like COVID. Or I know that the Pittsfield has begun to do some work with individuals that have incomes that meet the certain categories are eligible for loans that I think are emanating out of CPA in order to do some home improvement to keep them in their homes. So there are a number of programs that we don't know much about and the trust wouldn't know much about, but they could benefit from some work with an organization like this. So we don't have to vote to approve it, and we'll have more time to consider it in the future. But I think before we get to the end of the spring, sometime in April, we should probably revisit this and determine whether, as Central Mass configures it and begins to give us some final figures, whether it's something we think that we'd want to invest some of our housing money in. So we don't need to take any action, but if people have other questions, I can continue to pursue those.
I guess, thinking about that position, if it came down to, funding that position and being able to do projects, then I would start to think twice about it, depending on what the value is that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think the reason I'd look at it is that it's going to help us understand and it's going to help the Housing Trust understand and prioritize where they think they want to utilize the funds that are available out of CPA. So they would then they would be making recommendations based on their work with this housing coordinator to utilize the funds that we have most effectively. And Central Mass has got additional money this year that it can use to work with communities to put together grant proposals. So I would assume that the housing coordinator position is going to be working with the communities to advance grant applications for, particularly with the Mass Housing Trust. Because there's a lot of money right now in the state that people want to invest in housing. And I think if we're nimble about it, we can capture some of that. But I think we're more likely to capture it with the assistance of somebody like this in this position. So it's sort of an investment to give you the expertise to leverage the money that you've got in CPA, so you multiply it through grant opportunities that we probably wouldn't capture on our own, just because, I mean, I watch what Central Mass is doing now for town after town, whether it's green community grants or complete streets prioritization plan money or on and on. It's fairly
Yeah,
significant.
I hear your point. I mean, there's it is important that, I mean, just like we, supported having a town administrator.
Yeah.
Because, residents like us only know so much, you can only, those people are paid to keep their finger on the pulse, and, you can think, oh, it's an investment, I guess, in a position, but if you're not getting money back, if you're getting money back for it because you're getting grants and things like that, then and you're making better decisions, that's the investment.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess you're
Just-
right. I wasn't
just-
trying to be like nickel and dimey about it, but
But just the money that we're not spending on legal counsel for
Sure.
advice, could probably pay at least a significant portion of that.
true.
But we can revisit that as we get into March or April. Public input, we didn't have, do we have any public that wants to have input? We have two people in the audience. Right? If they have anything they'd like to say or contribute, if they want to raise their hand, that'd be great. No. Maureen, what have we missed?
I don't think you missed anything. Town report was sent off, so that's about that. And then on Friday, I'm getting some training to be able to get your web page.
Thursday?
Thursday with James at 2:00.
Yep.
So I can get the web page, and I guess, I don't know, if maybe you just want to verbally give me a blessing that it's okay to put the applications on the web page for the public to review if they want. That would be the only question I would have for you guys. Or you want to wait until after the warrant? I mean, it's your call.
Let's wait till our next meeting is my view. How do other people feel?
Yeah, practice with it and
Let's clean it up a little.
Yep.
Maureen, I'll catch up with you on Thursday and interrupt your training with James.
Okay.
But then we'll make sure we've drafted the warrant articles. We can finish those up.
Yep.
That's the main thing we've got to get done now. And then try to score a meeting with June to try to determine exactly what she's got. I think she's going to be available after this warrant closes, so.
Okay.
next meeting is,
When are you back?
I leave February 23rd, so I leave in 3 weeks
So I have February 7th.
as our next meeting.
as
So
your
next week.
meeting. Yeah.
And we don't need that. Unless someone's got a real pressing need to meet.
And then you would be waiting to the 28th. Because,
Right, and I won't be here, and we have planning board that night.
right.
Yep.
And because you decided not to do school vacation week, which is good because it sounds like Wayne will be with the select board on that 21st anyways.
Yep.
So,
And then in March, what did we throw in for dates?
We have the
Mm.
21st.
yeah, or well, March 7th too, you could have, I think.
How are people for March 7th?
But Carolyn won't be here. Is that the
I-
one?
Right,
Yeah, Carolyn won't be around for the 7th, but you guys could have the 7th.
I have a
But
school
my-
committee meeting.
And okay, yeah,
So
so,
the 21st to be better for you, Julie?
Yes, I have another one that night too, but it's as needed, so we typically don't do that, but it is budget cycle, so they may call one.
And what time do those usually start?
They start at 6:30 and they go many hours.
When is it that the warrant would actually get printed?
Not until April.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, we
at
could
our
put it there.
next meeting, what we would really be voting on is the language of the warrant articles.
The language is going to be submitted. It's going to be a question of whether we go with all three or we go with two.
We need June's numbers first.
Right.
Right.
So if we have June's
No, we
numbers,
don't.
right, if we have June's numbers by the 7th, we could
I
meet,
don't think we'll have them by the 7th.
right?
That's a week.
That's one
Right.
week, yeah.
So then
The next one, yeah, but the next one would be March 7th, right?
March 21st.
Yeah, but what's earlier in March?
Why can't we meet the 14th again?
Planning board,
Can we meet a different night of the week?
Wednesday, the 15th.
You know what,
Con-
guys, it's
conservation.
really, yeah, and honestly, to get the Zoom links, it's a battle.
Right. Conservation's the 15th.
This is why I wanted to get the whole year as much as we could, because
So here's a question. If the emergency order ends March 31st, does that mean unless something changes, we're meeting in person starting in April?
Tim and I have had that discussion. What do you think, Tim?
I think that the new governor is going to continue it.
Yeah, I do too.
I do too.
And then
Honestly.
it's just a question for the committee to decide whether it wants to start to meet in person. Maureen and I
Well,
have
you-
talked about that and if we did a hybrid, if the state allows hybrids, we could continue at that point in March or in April to begin, to do hybrid meetings. I'd like to have us think about the possibility of Maureen attending remotely anyway, because she lives miles and miles away, so.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not so much that, it's just the idea of leaving at 2:30 to come home, to go back
Yeah.
to 7:30.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, that stinks.
so,
Yeah.
If you all want to meet at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Will you talk to my boss? I'd love to.
so does that mean we're looking at, Julie can't make the 7th and potentially the 21st. Carolyn can make the 21st. The rest of us can make the 21st.
We'll
Are
make,
we
we'll make
gonna-
the 21st. I think they said, if I'm not there, or I can just come late.
March
21st of
No,
March.
March 21st.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Nice try.
So we'll shoot for that.
Okay.
As soon as you find out where you stand with June, can you send something around to all of us?
No,
You can,
Great suggestion.
you're gonna find out immediately when I find out. Yep, I'll
Awesome.
send it,
Thank
we'll send
you.
it to everybody.
That would be good.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's frustrating not having a clear
Yeah.
set of figures, but
For sure.
I think it stinks that we have to wait an entire year. If we got the grant money now before the end of the year, like that we couldn't expend that because that's ridiculous.
now, Maureen and I disagree about this, and not much, but we do disagree about this. If they have a fall town meeting, and I've been pushing Kristen and the select board to think about automatically scheduling 2 town meetings a year, so we all know when they are. And then if they don't need the fall one, they bail on it, but at least if we needed it, it would be scheduled and we could plan for it. And a project like this, where you said, okay, we can't do the pavilion now, let's say, or we can't do Carter Street. Well, Carter Street, if you don't do it now, you don't do it. So that's the way Ellie presented, and that's the case, I guess. But you could very well end up at a fall town meeting expending some CPA money. If you're carrying a project that's, like the fence certainly would have been something that we would have considered probably back in November if we did a town meeting. And theoretically, the grant money that comes in, if it comes in before the end of the year, is certified and available, in my mind, for a town meeting that could utilize it in the fall.
Right.
And I
Mhm.
think Maureen and I agree, we don't want to be grabbing onto new projects unless they're timely, like the Carter Street issue is at a fall town meeting, unless it's something that you've postponed already and asked somebody to wait because you didn't have all the money you needed.
Well, I
So
think,
that's something to think about too.
but I do think that that is an interesting point, because if you did have a fall town meeting and you vote it, and then you've got funding that doesn't, it could make you not be able to do something else because now you've spent part of it.
Ding,
That's
ding,
what
ding.
Maureen
Yeah,
likes.
that's
Yep.
my thing is like, if you commit to something and then, I don't even just use any aspect, it's the one in a lifetime chance to get it. It really is going to serve a lot of big population, but the funding's gone because you let it go in November versus waiting to have everything in front of
There's a
you
really good point to
to
that.
go. So that's,
That's why I think unless it really is a project that just comes out of the blue and you say, boy, this, we shouldn't pass up on.
Well,
and
it's all
everybody-
time sensitive.
right.
Or it is something that we've already felt very comfortable with and we've compared it to other proposals, but we had to pass on it because we didn't have the money. It seems in my mind that it's fair and reasonable to consider using one of those projects in the fall if,
My other point on trying to keep it on a regular kind of annual calendar situation is that once, like you guys are kind of new to this, but at some point, it could be that people will know that this is the meeting that they should come and actually give their input. So say you had, 30 people come for one particular item, that could shift the ranking that the members might have. So if you stay consistent, the community will know when they should, be, putting their input in for it, kind of thing, versus if it's sometimes now, sometimes then, that kind of thing. But
Yeah, but that's why you have a public hearing too.
that's what I'm saying. So, and if you get accustomed to when that public hearing takes place on an annual basis, you'll get better participation.
Well, I think in concept, it's not bad, but I think it all depends on the project that's in front of you. I mean.
Yep.
Yeah,
You could have
I
something
mean,
that's really
last November, the election, early voting started October 15. The election itself ended November 18. The general population came November 8th. I did threaten Tim if he pursued a special town meeting. I will own that now. Only because we were just, it was overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah, she
no,
was
maybe we only do it
murders.
3 out of every 4 years. Who knows?
Well, every other year you can because the biennial election.
Oh, yeah, but the presidential's the important one. Who cares about the state? Let's face it.
Yeah,
All right, so do we have a motion to meet on the 21st of March?
so
And a second?
second.
And then we'll do a roll call. Carolyn,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
Eloise,
I,
MJ,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Tim, aye, good. And any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
We
Second.
have a second?
hallelujah.
It's non-debatable. Roll call. Wayne,
Yes.
Eloise,
Yes.
MJ,
Yes.
Ellie,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Tim, I. Thank you very much.